Tommy Tuberville. Senator, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it. You know, there's a big question about whether the administration is contradicting itself now based on what they've said before about, one, whether FEMA has enough money to deal with all these crises, these emergencies, and two, whether or not they waylaid a lot of that money for spending on migrants. And I just want to play for you first the Mayorkas. He's, of course, the Secretary of Homeland Security. Play what he said last week about where they are with the funding. Roll tape.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
So it was pretty frank. He said, we don't have the funds to make it through the season. And then the question is why? Well, here's the spokesperson for the White House, Ms. Jean-Pierre, explaining something last week that actually contradicts something she said a couple of years ago. Roll that tape.
Biden did not take FEMA relief money to use on migrants. So FEMA regional administrators have been meeting with city officials on site to coordinate available federal support from FEMA and other federal agencies. We'll continue to do what we can as a federal government to support these cities as we rebuild our asylum processing system after it was gutted by the Trump administration.
Okay, so the bottom line, Senator, is on the one hand they're saying this, on the other hand they say exactly the opposite. I leave it to you now to try to figure out what's going on here.
Well, our country's in a mess and the world is in a mess, and this administration, David, has no clue what they're doing. I've been in the Senate now for going on 4 years, and it's been like this the entire time. Now, when it comes to spending money, they know how to do that, but they don't know how to prepare for anything. You know, let's go back to North Carolina. First of all, it's not about money at North Carolina the first few days. It's about security, people on the ground like military, helping find people that are stranded, opening up roads, doing the things to get communication into the area in North Carolina. They heard zero from FEMA for 5 or 6 days. It was a disaster, and it's continued to be a disaster. There are more people still missing, but David, this administration, Mayorkas being the leader of this pack when it comes to some kind of security, whether it's the border or whether it's FEMA, he's never prepared. He always blames somebody else. And now they're blaming President Trump for all this that's going on. These people know how to spend money, but that's the only thing they know how to do. They can't do anything other than just spend the taxpayers' money, and they usually waste it when it comes to that.
Well, and they misappropriate it. I mean, on the one hand, yes, you know, last week Jean-Pierre was saying that they haven't used any money from FEMA for the migrants, but in 2022, she said very clearly, funding is also available through FEMA's emergency food and shelter program. That's money that was going to the migrants. That's money that the folks in Appalachia need right now.
Yeah, and we've all known that. They've been spending billions of dollars on the illegals coming across the border. Once they get here, they take care of them much more than they take care of our veterans or the homeless that people live in this country. David, I was coming from Bogota, Colombia a few weeks ago. Half the plane was filled with Venezuelans and people from South America that our government and taxpayer money, they were flying people on those planes to Houston. It was a commercial airliner, and then they were going places from there. It is a disaster. It's getting worse every day, but this group could care less. All they want is votes, David. They don't want to take care of any American citizen. They want votes to get reelected to carry this power on for another 4 years, and heaven help us if that happens.
And by the way, those folks that were on the plane with you haven't been vetted. I mean, it's quite clear that they just had arrests. ICE had to arrest some horrible people. They were child molesters from a bunch of different countries that were flown in. And clearly they hadn't been vetted, because if they had, they would have found out they had a horrible record from where they came from.
Exactly. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. You know, our prayers are out to the people of North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina. But Dave, let me tell you, I've lived in the South all my life. I've been through hurricanes. I went through a terrible one in Andrew back in '91 in Miami when I was coaching down there. There's one coming named Milton coming at Tampa right now. It's a Category 5. It's supposed to go down a little bit, but that usually never happens The people of Tampa need to prepare to get out. Thank God we have Governor DeSantis there preparing for this, because I promise you one thing, FEMA is nowhere to be found.
Well, meanwhile, while Mayorkas says we are running out of money for FEMA, Vice President Kamala Harris was bragging over the weekend about sending money to Lebanon, of all places. She put out an ex-post saying, "I am concerned about the security and well-being of civilians suffering in Lebanon and will continue working to help meet the needs of all the civilians there." All the civilians there? What about the civilians here?
Well, this is for a long conversation, David, but that's a war there. Our friend and ally Israel is fighting for their livelihood over there. And we're funding both sides. We're giving some money, some weapons to Israel, but now we're sending money to Lebanon, who they're fighting. We continue to do this. We're sending money to Hamas. We're building ports for Hamas. We're letting Iran run rampant in terms of making money to fund all this stuff, along with the American people. It is out of control. All they're trying to do is tell the people in Michigan and some of these areas that have people from the Islamic countries that, hey, we're taking care of your people over there. Vote for us in 4 or 5 weeks, and I promise you, we'll help you again. We care nothing about the American people, and it's out of control, and hopefully the American people see what's going on.
Senator, one more on FEMA for you. With the chief of FEMA, a woman named Deanne Criswell, claims it's disinformation to essentially tell the truth, that what the administration, including Mayorkas, including Jean-Pierre, have been saying about money being used from FEMA for migrants, et cetera. Now, she's the one who last year signed a pledge to, and I'm quoting here, instill equity in disaster relief. Do you know what equity in disaster relief is?
Well, we probably could ask the ex-Secret Service director, who is the same way. She was all DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion in terms of the Secret Service. They almost got President Trump killed. Now the same thing here. People are dying because FEMA is worried more about diversity, equity, inclusion, and climate change than they are helping the people of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Again, these people have no clue about organization and taking care of the people that they are being paid to take care for. So they need to get off their tails and go to work. But again, we've got another terrible tragedy getting ready to happen here in 36 hours. I hope they get their stuff together. If they need the money, we will pass it for them. But unfortunately, they've wasted $20 billion on these illegals coming in for 4 years, and that has created a more disaster than anything else.
Senator Tommy Tuberville, great to see you, sir, and we do pray for those folks in the line of fire from Milton. I appreciate it.